This is the Patriots Prayer Network, where truth matters.
Hello, everyone. This is Alexandra with Alexandra 360 on a special episode and day today. It is a phenomenal day to be an American. Exactly 2 months today, President Donald J. Trump will be taking that oath of office. He'll be sworn in as the 47th President of the United States. J.D. Vance will be our Vice President, and things will start to move in the right direction for we the people. I predict that President Trump will have a stack of executive orders to sign the minute after he is inaugurated, after he does his speech, just like Joe Biden did. But President Trump will be implementing things that he implemented when he was president in 2017, and even better, even more so. So since President Trump won the election, he has been appointing some of the most powerful people and some of the most loyal people into cabinets and into positions in his administration, such as Stephen Miller, such as Dan Scavino Jr., who's been with him from the beginning, such as Susan Summerall Wiles, who's going to be his chief of staff, and also congressmen and senators that have been loyal to the president, such as Congressman Michael Waltz from the state of Florida, my Senator Marco Rubio from the state of Florida, and the big one, Florida Congressman in District 1, Congressman Matt Gaetz, and we're going to put up the meme. He was appointed as Attorney General. Now it says, breaking news, President Trump has sent word to the Senate Majority Leader, the new one, John Thune, that if the Senate doesn't confirm AG Matt Gaetz, he will appoint him using the Federal Vacancies Reform Act of 1998, which allows for temporary appointments for up to 210 days with a possible 210-day extension. The individual would not require Senate confirmation. So let me tell you a little bit about this. So since President Trump appointed Congressman Matt Gaetz as the Attorney General, of course, the Senate GOP is freaking out. People in Congress are freaking out because Congressman Matt Gaetz will go into the department and he will clean it all out. He will clean the DOJ out. And you know why President Trump appointed him? Because Congressman Matt Gaetz himself has been framed and has been lied about with the DOJ. The DOJ has tried to investigate him. Former DOJ officials have tried to investigate him for crimes that they know he didn't commit. The biggest one is that he had sex with a 17-year-old girl and he's had sex with underage girls. Let me tell you something, folks. It's not the first time a politician has been accused of such salacious acts. Well, the DOJ did their investigation. And guess what? They didn't find any probable evidence to convict him or to go forward. But now that he is appointed Attorney General, Matt Gaetz immediately resigned as congressman. He's no longer a congressman. He immediately resigned on the day that he was appointed. Now the House Ethics Committee wants to do a whole investigation on him. I think brought the 17-year-old that claimed that she was raped by Congressman Matt Gaetz. And now they want to do this whole investigation and bring it to the forefront at his Senate confirmation. But let me pose the question. How is the House Ethics Committee more powerful than the DOJ? How does the House Ethics Committee have more clout and more evidence than the DOJ? Once the DOJ said there is no probable evidence, the case is closed. The man has been exonerated. And I know Congressman Matt Gaetz personally. I've known him for years. I've sung the national anthem for him. I've met his wonderful wife, Ginger Lucky. And Congressman Matt Gaetz, before he was married, he would date girls between the ages of 20 to 25, which is legal age. He would date college girls. And there's pictures of the girls that he dated, and there was pictures of the universities that he would go to. I know Matt Gaetz would never do anything this salacious. He's not stupid. He's an attorney. And if for some reason there was a 17-year-old in the mix, it was a setup. I can also tell you that as someone that was in the skincare and makeup industry, a lot of these 16 and 17-year-olds don't look like they're 16 or 17. They wear a tremendous amount of makeup. They dress like their mother or their grandmother, and they look and appear a lot older than what they are. A lot of these 16 or 17-year-old girls I would talk to when I was providing services for them and doing their makeup for them in the skincare departments, they would lie to me about their age. They would tell me they were 20, 21, 22. I'd ask them for their driver's license IDs. And I saw that, number one, the driver's licenses were fake, but also the ones that did cough up their real driver's license, they were 16 or 17 years old. They were not 20 or 21 like they told me. A lot of these young girls get paid. They get paid to try to seduce congressmen, to seduce senators. So something like this would happen to them. It's pay to play. It has happened a lot over the years. But Congressman Matt Gaetz, again, under the DOJ said there's no probable evidence to prosecute Congressman Matt Gaetz. This is a political ploy to hurt the man so that he doesn't get confirmed. And again, Senate Majority Leader John Thune, after he was voted in, President Trump called him right away. Of course, he thanked him for winning and congratulated him. I would say congratulated him more than thanked him because he wasn't his choice and he wasn't we the people's choice. My Senator Rick Scott was the people's choice, and he also was President Trump's choice. But he said to Senator John Thune, he said, now that you're the new Senate Majority Leader, I hope that all of my appointments go through and that there is no problems. Senate Majority Leader John Thune promised the president, yes, I will make sure all your appointments go through. Let's see what happens. Let's see if Senator John Thune keeps his word and keeps his promise. But of course, Mitch McConnell has his own agenda as usual to stop President Trump's appointments from going through. So that's why in that meme that we just showed you, President Trump will have to enact the Vacancies Reform Act if Matt Gaetz does not get confirmed and doesn't go through. It's really sad that President Trump cannot have his appointments go through. And these are appointments that we the people voted for, meaning these are congressmen and senators that we the people have voted for. But there's also good people in there that have done good for we the people. And it's all about loyalty. President Trump is hiring people in his administration right now that have been loyal to him from the beginning. President Trump said, I'm going to vet the people properly, and I'm going to put people that I trust close to me. He said that was one of the biggest things that he regrets in 2016, 2017, not having the right people in front of him. And his son, Donald Trump Jr., confirmed that on Fox News the other day. He said, we know now who we can trust and who we can't trust. My father was brand new going into the White House. He really didn't know who to trust. He really didn't know who the bad guys are. Now my father knows who the bad guys are. Now we know who the bad guys are. And we're going to put the right people in that will help this country. And if you look at who he's appointed, who President Trump has appointed, in addition to Matt Gaetz, he's appointed Tulsi Gabbard as D&I director. He's appointed RFK Jr. as the HHS secretary. And we'll get into that with my guest. And he's appointed Pete Hegseth. Pete Hegseth served our nation. He appointed him as Secretary of Defense. He's a Fox News anchor. But these are people, and I just said Tulsi Gabbard, excuse me. But these are people that have been hurt by the government. These are people that have been investigated by the government. Tulsi Gabbard was put on an FBI terrorist watch list. So when she would go through the airport, she had to be taken aside, probably cavity searched for no reason at all. And that was the Biden-Kamala Harris administration that did that to her and to her husband too. So these are people that have been quote unquote screwed by the government. And guess what? The government is not going to screw us anymore. And that's why President Trump is putting these people in high positions. Remember, President Trump ran on draining the swamp, cleaning out the establishment, getting rid of the rhinos, the never Trumpers, the snowflakers. He says we don't need them in power. And also, we the people didn't vote for it. We the people didn't vote for the very famous rhino Larry Hogan. We the people didn't vote for a lot of people that did not back and support Donald Trump. This is a mandate from we the people to get our country back on track, but to reduce government control. Going back to RFK Jr., we'll put up that post that I have of him. As I said, he's appointed as the new HHS secretary. He wants to clean up the healthcare in this country, but also clean the food. The food in America is bad. It's very processed. The tap water is all full of chemicals. You have rivers flowing, especially in Baltimore, Maryland, where I go to a lot. Chemicaled water. I'm on the RFK Jr. diet, and I've lost 10 pounds from it because it's about a clean diet, eating fruits and vegetables that you can grow in your own backyard, not drinking tap water anymore, drinking water that has alkaline and electrolytes in it, making sure you don't eat things with dyes and chemicals like Fruit Loops, Captain Crunch, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, Doritos. These are all things that are in your food that can hurt you and make you heavy, and not eating stuff that has a lot of added sugar or mercury. There's nothing wrong with making America healthy again. That's what RFK Jr. campaigned on, and that's what President Trump believes in now, because he's listened to a lot of things that RFK Jr. said. Fast food is extremely bad for you, such as Burger King, McDonald's, Wendy's. Very bad for you. There you go. There's a whole picture there of foods that are bad for you. The Welch's fruit gummies, the Cheez-Its. That's stuff you guys got to cut out of your diet. And also cut out of your kids' diet. Because you don't want your kids getting diabetes at young ages or being pre-diabetic. I would recommend giving my child Bran or Fiber One cereal, or even Raisin Bran. Something with whole wheat or whole grain. Nothing with added sugar. Forget Lucky Charms. It's not magically delicious anymore. Because in the end, it'll hurt your body. And you'll thank yourself later. You'll thank yourself later for having a clean diet, because it'll save you from a lot of health problems, and it'll save you from going to a lot of doctors down the road. Speaking of doctors, coming up right after the break, I have a repeated guest, Dr. Michael Goldstein. He ran for Congress in Connecticut. He is a renowned doctor. We'll also have his son, Jonathan Goldstein, on as well, who is the campaign manager for his congressional race. And I'm so excited to have the doctor back. And we will continue this conversation right after the break.
Born in the coastal plains of South Texas, Smoking Gun Coffee is founded by combat veterans that know exactly what a cup of coffee needs to taste like. Run by father and son, each coffee bean is perfected, roasted at 500 degrees, and cooled with a Gulf Coast breeze. Smoking Gun Coffee hand makes and bags each ounce of coffee for maximum customer satisfaction. With every purchase, 10% goes back to organizations that help veterans and local communities. That's Texas made, one bag at a time. To find out more, go to www.smokingguncoffee.com.
America faces challenges like never before. Economic uncertainty, social unrest, debt implosion. The foundations of our freedom are under attack. To restore strength, prosperity, and the American way of life, Trump must win.
I plan to ensure that the United States will be the crypto capital of the planet and the Bitcoin superpower of the world.
Introducing the Trump token, blending the deflationary model of Bitcoin with the technological advancement of Solana. It's more than just a cryptocurrency. It's America's future medium of exchange. The Trump token pledges to donate 50% of proceeds, up to $50 million, to Trump's 2024 re-election campaign. Join the movement. Stand with Trump. Secure your future at thetrumptoken.com.
Hi, everyone. We're back. I'm Alexandra Levine with Alexandra 360. I have my wonderful guest with me, again, Dr. Michael Goldstein, and we have someone new, his son, Jonathan Goldstein.
Hi, guys.
Thank you guys so much for coming on. Thank you again, Dr. Michael Goldstein, for coming on again.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome.
Thanks for having us, Alexandra.
Yeah, thank you. So again, Dr. Goldstein, I'll go to you first, and then Jonathan, please come in. So going back to what I said in the beginning about your health, about healthcare, you know, you're a doctor yourself. I know that you campaign hard against the vaccines. I will admit to my audience, I did not take the vaccines for many, many reasons. With RFK Jr. now appointed as the new HHS secretary. What is your thoughts and feelings about that, and how can we make America healthy again?
Well, I think that he's definitely a completely different approach than what we've seen before in terms of vaccines. And I think that the number of vaccines that children need to take right now is now 78 or something ridiculous. And I think that no one, the only approval requirement is that they actually work, but no one's done like cost benefit analysis or risk benefit analysis. Like what is the downside to doing vaccines versus not? And so to me, I think having somebody in there that's, views vaccines with a different perspective is going to change vaccine policy. That I think that, look, some of the vaccines are necessary. Some of them may be overkill. And there are other issues in which he has data that claims that, there's autism and other things that could result from vaccines. So I think we're going to look at vaccines from a much different perspective. And I hope that we're going to do a lot of research and data to find out what we should be doing and what the best and the safest approach should be with regard to vaccines in children. So I think it's a good step. I mean, you've had a pendulum that swung one way from a small number of vaccines, 20 or 30 years ago to a large number. And now you're going to see the pendulum start to swing back. And I think that's always good to swing back toward the center in something like this.
Yeah, Jonathan, I'm going to have you comment on that because you're not a doctor. So I want to hear that from your perspective.
Sure. I'm also unjected. I'm unapologetically unvaccinated, Alexandra, and not a snowflake. So, yeah, I think with respect to RFK Jr., he focuses on the data and focuses on the science, which has been ignored for too long. So I really applaud him on that and looking to reduce the number of vaccines and also reducing immunity to pharmaceutical companies that have blanket immunity once they put these vaccines on the market. And that's been a real issue. We haven't really seen flu deaths in 4 or 5 years now. They've only been COVID related. So I think recharacterization, a lot of these deaths are going to be very important to the future of science and healthcare. I think it's also important that, it's not just RFK Jr. You've got Dr. Oz coming in for Medicare, Medicaid. And I mean, that's $1.7 trillion in budget plus another, I think, $155 billion of discretionary money. So you're seeing a whole bunch of, different approaches. And I think what Kennedy's going to bring is a lot more diagnostic related data. And it's not about people going to doctors constantly, in the ER. It's about preventative healthcare. And I really would like to see more, from my perspective, a lot more diagnostics that you can take at home to determine certain illnesses long before you have to get to the doctor. And I hope more rapid testing. Everyone's now comfortable shoving a Q-tip up their nose, and people are becoming more, familiar with eliminating some of these basic diagnostics that require health technicians. And I think the final thing I'll say is I really hope that there's a lot more focus to the medical profession of nursing and healthcare. I mean, you're seeing unbelievable attrition rates, and I think 22% of current nurses and other practitioners are planning on leaving the health field while we're having a health crisis. And they tried the Safe Staffing Act with respect to the balance of how many nurses per patient. There's nothing really there for the CNA related area. And when you're going to see a doctor or you're in a hospital, having the people that are actually taking care of you, having enough of them is critical. So it's about moving the money across and making sure that our doctors are taken care of. Administrative waste goes by the wayside because, my dad's campaign was all about cutting administrative waste and putting the focus into the practice of medicine, the avoidance of catastrophic surgeries where you can treat it much earlier, preventative medicine, and putting the dollars into medicine and not into administrators' pockets. So
I agree with you. I just want to do one follow-up question with that, and then we'll move on to a different subject. So do you agree with RFK Jr., and I'll go to Jonathan first, about the food that we have in America, that it's very processed? There's a lot of dyes and chemicals in the food. A lot of people don't even look before they eat stuff. I mean, I used to eat Doritos all the time. I used to eat Captain Crunch as a child. What do you think about that, about going on what we call the RFK Jr. diet? What do you, Jonathan?
I strive to try to know what I put in my body. I know when I have a cheat day, and I know how I feel after a cheat day. So our food makes us sick. And RFK's been a big proponent. I mean, look at the guy. He's jacked at his age. It's not because, he takes care of himself, but he also knows what he puts in his body, and moving towards eat to live, not live to eat. And
exactly.
I think that's a major component.
Yeah. Dr. Goldstein, what is your thoughts on that?
Sure. Well, if you start with the fact, if you look at obesity rates in the 1950s versus today, I mean, I think it was like something like less than 10%, and now I think it's like closer to 40%. So we're obviously doing something wrong. And, and the reality is that a lot of these like foods are addictive, and you'll see people that are eating, as you call them, junk foods, all kinds of processed stuff, and rather than eating healthy. And I think that it all affects, the long-term results. Obesity, is associated with diabetes, with heart disease, with cancer, with strokes. I mean, so there's huge reasons to want to eliminate obesity and have people eat healthy stuff. And the reality is that he's right. I mean, why are all these chemicals being put into our foods, which are, by the way, many of them are illegal in Europe, and it just doesn't make sense that we would subject ourselves to a much lower standard. And I think that the real problem, unfortunately, is that our institutions have been corrupted. And whether it's the FDA, which I think, which is one of the issues, as well as in terms of these food additives. And I think that because it's a revolving door, people go to work for the FDA, and then after they leave, they go to work for these corporations that do business with the FDA. So they want to keep those future employers happy because they want a job when they leave. And I think that rather than the priority of actually doing their job, their priority is like, where do they go next? And I think that this revolving door issue is incredibly problematic. And I think it's one of the reasons that we're failing. And I also, one of the other issues is the long time that it takes to approve a medication in this country. It costs billions of dollars. Many of our medications are introduced 5 years later than in other parts of the world. And drugs that could save lives and improve health are just delayed because of this regulatory nightmare that we have in this incredibly slow process. And I believe that all this stuff needs to be restructured if we want to reduce healthcare costs and we want to provide better healthcare. And certainly, eating healthy food is certainly makes sense. I mean, we try not to really eat processed foods, and I think it's a real problem. But processed foods also have some addictive qualities, and so you see these people going around and filling their bodies with empty calories rather than healthy ones. And then we all ultimately pay the price, and their families pay the price for the health consequences.
Exactly. Those are great answers. I wanted to shift it a little bit to your congressional race, because last time we talked, Dr. Michael Goldstein, you were running for Congress against the incumbent Jim Hines. And I want you to really focus on that because,
yes,
unfortunately, and we saw this, states that didn't require photo ID, Kamala Harris won. But also, very hardcore, liberal areas that have great candidates such as yourself, you didn't win, unfortunately, and others didn't win either. And now we're dealing with a situation in California where they're constantly counting the ballots, even though the Californian congressmen have won, but they're still constantly counting. And you have Arizona where they're constantly counting. In Nevada, they constantly counted days and days and days. So talk a little bit about your race, but also talk about how we can get liberal counties to flip from D to R in the future. Go ahead, Dr. Goldstein.
Well, the whole thing is this. I mean, what's interesting is what you have in places, certain parts of Connecticut and other places in the Northeast and probably in the West Coast, what people call they're called like a liberal elite, or they're also called Brahmin liberals, where they're these highly educated people with that are well-to-do and have these bizarre liberal ideas, none of which, of course, affect them. So they have no problem implementing them. And yet a lot of those ideas are extremely harmful. So one of the greatest paradoxes in our race is one of the wealthiest towns in my district, Westport, which consists of a lot of liberal elites, and Bridgeport, which is the poorest town in the state, voted exactly the same, which to me just defies most logic. And the reality is, I think that there's unfortunately also an information gap where a lot of information is being suppressed. The media collaborates with the Democrats, so a lot of the facts don't come out, and a lot of people are just living in a bubble. They're totally unaware of what's really going on. And so we tried very aggressively to get to people. Remember, we ran a relatively underfunded campaign because we're in a Democratic state and people are skeptical. I mean, we sent out about 1.6 million targeted text messages with embedded videos, to different groups of people talking about different issues. But the media is either silent or collaborates, so people don't really know the truth. They don't really know why they're paying too much for energy. They don't know why. They don't really know about all the education policies that are going on in the schools that are brainwashing their children. They don't know why there's a lot of money that's being wasted in the federal government. They don't know. They're essentially unaware. And because they're unaware and they're kind of programmed to vote, for Democrats, they tend to do. And one of the most bizarre things that happened to me, so I spoke to some groups of seniors, and to me, they seemed, and even though Connecticut has some of the most liberal abortion laws in the country, they seem to be concerned that people in Georgia or in Florida were having difficulty getting abortions, and that seemed to be more important to them than the economy. It seemed more important to them than world peace. And I don't understand how people misprioritize things that are relatively irrelevant to them. And even in the state of Connecticut, the amount of abortions that are performed are relatively small. It's about 1,000 a month, and 650 of those are chemical abortions where a person takes 2 different pills, and that's it. So you're talking about 350, physical abortions, or 12 a day. I mean, this is like the game changer that determines like how people vote, and that to me just kind of makes no sense. I mean, people really are just. I guess it's because of the media, but their brains have really shifted to the totally wrong things. I mean, we're in a world where we could go into World War III, especially with the way the Biden administration is running. We're in a world where we have massive inflation that's due to mismanagement. We have terrible energy policies. Our education system is turned into brainwashing. We've had massive anti-Semitism. We've had all this stuff going on, and yet the voters. They just don't. They're mostly ignoring all this stuff because none of this seems to matter, and I personally can't understand it.
Well, Jonathan, I want to shift it to you because you were your father's campaign manager, which is amazing. I love that. I love families working together. Kind of reminds me of the Trump campaign because all of his family worked together as one. It was great. So tell me that perspective. Tell my audience the perspective of being the campaign manager, helping your dad, trying to get even you were telling me liberal Jews in your area to vote for your father, and even they were giving you pushback. And we're all Jewish here, by the way, for the record.
Sure. I mean, we'll start with the Jewish perspective. And I mean, I've got the We Stand with Israel flag behind me. It's no coincidence.
I'm Yisrael Chai.
Exactly. And I've been involved in the Jerusalem prayer breakfast, bringing Christians and Jews together to pray for Jerusalem. And evangelical Christians, we had unbelievable support from. Jews, we had, again, Westport is probably the largest Jewish population in our district. And again, we had the worst turnout. We sent approximately about 150,000 texts just to Jewish voters. I mean, the total number of texts. There's not 150,000 Jews in our district. Mm-hmm. And the big issue there was that we supported Trump and Netanyahu, and we were genocidal murderers. And I have unbelievable text messages, responses because of our technology that we can look at, and the delusional mentality of, where New York got about 45% of the Jewish vote, which actually aligned with approximately what Trump got as a percentage of the votes in New York. Connecticut did not see that same red wave of Judaism, if you will. I would say it was probably like 22 to 25%. Again, not exactly sure, but based on Westport as a good barometer, that's what we're looking at. So there's a real big issue there. As far as being a campaign manager on the family circuit here and having this kind of mini Trump experience with my dad, Goldstein. We don't have as many Goldsteins as there are Trumps. It's unbelievable father-son time in a different way than just like, being at a baseball game or a track meet or a cross-country event. So it was an opportunity to connect and spend a lot of time in the car and, driving when he's falling asleep, exhausted from one event to the next and waking him up and getting him ready and, and sometimes just say, here, show up and look pretty. But, it's just, depending on the day. And it's been an unbelievable experience. We've met unbelievable people. And we want to make sure that we're using our platform and our voice to help others. I mean, there are so many people we have talked to, and we continue to talk to local politicians to try to help constituents based on those people we interact with. So the campaign doesn't end when you lose. We knew we were facing an uphill battle. We thought we might get the red wave. Connecticut went bluer, although some people say it went redder. Again, you can look at one thing one way. I see it as Connecticut went much bluer, and Trump did a little bit better. But overall, there were a lot of Republican seats lost. There are super majorities now in the Senate here and in the House of Connecticut's legislature. And people are just not waking up. So there's a lot to learn from. We're not going anywhere. We want to continue to make sure that we are addressing people, and we'll continue to focus on these issues. Part of this is just, you have to run to take one for the team. And I think that's important. And what I'd like to see for the future for the RNC is that they put money in every campaign, whether there's a shot of winning or not, because I think we have to raise all levels here and not just bet on the winners. When you put $150 million in Ted Cruz's race and you can't put $1 into Connecticut, that's kind of, it's a problem. And we need more support going forward for any candidate running for office, and that you have to support people, even if it's $5. But at the same time, we were running up against everyone going, I'm giving Trump money. And that was a hard part, is that he was cannibalizing donations across the country, and that is to be expected. And I'm so glad he won, and the country will be better off. But I think going forward, there should be a more global approach to every single congressional seat, whether the person has a chance of winning or not.
Well, let me follow up with you on that, Jonathan. That's an important point. Do you think now that President Trump has won, now we as conservatives, we have a bigger voice now, because President Trump says we're tired of the rhinos, the never Trumpers, the snowflakers, he'll primary out, he'll get rid of them. And one of the questions to you is, and I'll say this to your father too, do you plan on running again? And do you feel that you will have more support or a better chance of winning now that President Trump is the president, he is taking over the RNC, and there'll be more money flowing for the Republican Party to put into your race and other races that haven't won in the past?
I think it will be, it's too early for me to tell on that one. I think there are a lot of armchair Avengers out there that believe that by posting on social media, they're making an impact for a campaign or for a policy. But we saw almost no grassroots movement here in Connecticut. It's actually worse than it was in 2022. So I can't say Connecticut is going to suddenly be bolstered in their efforts for the midterms at this point. So that for me is a concern. I think across the country there will be areas. I think Pennsylvania definitely will have better support. I don't think the conservative movement will be as successful here in Connecticut unless people realize that they have to put time into a campaign. And just some statistics. In 1 hour, you could probably knock on approximately, let's say, 50 doors. Depending on the neighborhood, in 1 hour, you can make 200 phone calls. And in our district, there's about 750,000 people that you could impact that are potential voters in theory. So when you do the numbers, it's not a lot of actual effort to reach voters, but no one is willing to step up. So I encourage everyone, if you don't have the time if you don't have the money, put in a little bit of time. If you don't have the time, put in money. It all goes to different places. And I think that's where we're really concerned about for the future. And we're not going anywhere. We're going to continue to advocate and work with as many people as we can to keep moving this mission forward wherever we are.
Great. And that question to you, Dr. Goldstein, do you think that you'll be running again in the future? How can we do basically a makeover of the Connecticut GOP in your mind?
Well, first of all, the Connecticut GOP is fragmented. So in other words, normally a party needs to be unified to be effective. So you have individuals that run for state office and they run for themselves and they don't run as a team. And therefore, if they win, that's nice. But as a team, we do much better. So there's a philosophically a lack of unity. I mean, this district is divided into 17 cities and towns, and each one of them is an independent entity with its own leadership, and each one of them runs separately, which I think is completely flawed. I think that without unity, you can't really win. So the first point is structurally, you need a unified party rather than a fragmented party. The second point is that you need the manpower and the volunteers and the money to actually run the races. I mean, once again, it's, if they invested money, there's probably 3 congressional races that, if they were properly funded, could have been won in the state of Connecticut, and nothing was funded. And I think that they're the philosophy, well, we're only investing where we think we can win, and rather than we should look at every place we can go and fight them in every place we can, because that way we're going to pick up seats that we wouldn't have thought we would have picked up, and we're going to be much better off, and those can be done for much less money. Because Connecticut is not a market where there's television advertising per se, because it's part of the New York market. People aren't advertising in the New York market in order to reach Connecticut because it's too expensive. So Connecticut politics can be done with a lot less money than in a lot of other places, provided that there's somebody willing to say, okay, let's take a chance. And if we lose, we lose. But then again, if we're going to spend $10 million on one place for one race, why can't we spend $1 million on 3 races and see if we can win one of them? Because that's still a much better return on our investment. But the way people think is they will only invest in if there's a high probability of winning, rather than trying to go for some of the long shots and just think of it as they should take a venture capital approach to politics, and in that way the chances of winning seats and succeeding in a place like Connecticut are much greater. I mean, obviously for us to run again, we would need to have sufficient funding to actually be able to do some of the things that we couldn't do this time. Otherwise, we might just wind up with the same result. The other thing I think is going to happen is, if over the next year or two, people's lives change for the better, and they realize personally that life is much better under Republican, then they may also say to themselves, okay, life's better under a Republican on the federal level. Let's elect more Republican congressmen, let's elect more Republican state legislators, and hope that carries through at the state and local state level as well, and the congressional level in Connecticut. I mean, if you think about it, the Connecticut never gets their fair share of federal money, and yet had Republicans been elected in Connecticut, then which would be a sort of a novelty, then we would have a much greater chance of getting much better federal funding for Connecticut than the current Democrats, who really are doing a lousy job.
I 100% agree with you, and that actually happened here in the state of Maryland. That a lot of people put a lot of money and effort into Larry Hogan because they said, oh, without him, we can't flip the Senate. But they lost on a lot of congressional races. There was one in CD6 that could have flipped. And then the local races actually didn't get a lot of support, but the local races actually all won Republican on their own merit because they built up their own brand. But again, to your point, if the party and even the central committees would have focused on giving money to everybody running and not just one person, Larry Hogan, we would have had wins on the federal level. Because Maryland focused just on Larry Hogan, guess what? They didn't win any on the federal level. So we still in Maryland just have one Republican Congressman Andy Harris, who won re-election, and the rest is all Democrat. And we have a Democrat senator there again, Angela Asselbrooks. So
and we had a different issue here. Sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, John.
We had a different issue here, that we had a lot of Republican candidates that were afraid to embrace President Trump.
Yeah, we had that in Maryland as well.
And that was kind of a unique issue. I think going with respect to Connecticut, there will be some more attention now that Linda McMahon is being selected for the Department of Education. And, she's a political powerhouse, second time on Trump's cabinet, this from SBA, the first administration, to education. And all these sort of tie into each other. So I think there will be some attention to Connecticut just because of Linda McMahon, which is important. But, we have, HHS and Department of Education, we have Veterans Affairs. All these things sort of tie into different parts of the Trump administration, but they all sort of tie into healthcare. There will, I think, part of education will shift into HHS as a different way to administer some things. And so healthcare, you've got Make America Healthy as your tagline here. So I believe that with a focus on health, and in Connecticut, I think the second largest employer are the healthcare networks here in Connecticut. So looking at the employer nature of this is where I think we're going to see more focus on states like Connecticut and others where the majority of the budget is healthcare or health-related industries. So,
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And I'm in the healthcare profession as well. I sell health, life, and annuities. I'm very happy that Kamala didn't win because she would have cut off your private healthcare insurance. And I'm in open enrollment right now, which is the busiest time of year for anyone to get insured. And different people that I talk to have different needs. Not everybody can have universal healthcare. Not everybody can be on the same plan. I know that RFK Jr. and even President Trump will eventually weed out the ACA, the Affordable Care Act. I don't sell the Affordable Care Act. I never have. And the fact that they even pushed illegals to have healthcare in this country is disgusting. And any healthcare agent that did give an illegal healthcare, they should lose their license because that is illegal. I would never sell healthcare to an illegal, never. So I agree with you 100%, Jonathan, is, people are looking at their healthcare, they're looking at their wallets. Those are really big issues that the American people were concerned about. And that's why we gave Congress a mandate and we said, President Trump is our man. His agenda is our man. We believe in the Make America Great Again agenda, the America First agenda. And again, these people work for us. They completely forget that they work for us. And we the people have to keep reminding them that they work for us. And unfortunately, you have some bad apples in there. You have the rhinos, you have the never Trumpers, you have the snowflakers that are still in there in liberal areas and liberal states. And that's kind of where it has to start, that we need to weed those, I call them the weeds. We need to weed the weeds, pluck the weeds out of the party to get the agenda, the right agenda forward for we the people, because again, it's about your constituents. And I know Dr. Goldstein and you, Jonathan, you ran around your district and you talked to all of your constituents and you listened to all of their concerns, whether they were Republican, Democrat, Independent alike. And that's what's so important. We just have a couple minutes left. I want final thoughts from you guys. You guys can even talk about the situation that's going on in Ukraine and Russia, what Joe Biden wants to do to this country. Like Dr. Goldstein, which you mentioned, wants to put us in World War III. So focus on that and some final thoughts, Dr. Goldstein.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the problem with Biden, well, maybe I don't really know. I don't think Biden's making any decisions, but who's ever pulling his strings is really pushing the envelope. And I think that we don't really want to be in World War III. And I think certainly with Trump as president, I think that the world will change. I think the Ukrainian situation will be settled. I do believe that Israel will finally have its ability to actually destroy its enemies. And I think that we really all have to aggressively, attack Iran. And I believe that a Middle East where Israel is a partner with the other Arab states will ultimately, in the long run, create a much more peaceful and stable region. I think there's been such an overemphasis on the Palestinians, and yet from a geopolitical state in a whole region with hundreds of millions of people, the Palestinians are a relatively small number of people, and certainly the rest of the region shouldn't suffer just because of them. And I think it's geopolitical stability in the Middle East makes much more sense than appeasing Palestinians, especially considering how many of them have been dedicated to terrorism, and their leaders profit and become billionaires from terrorism. And I think that if the money stopped, if the terrorism stopped being subsidized, I think they'd be singing a different tune. I think peace would happen much faster.
Your thoughts, Jonathan?
Yeah, I mean, with respect to Ukraine and Israel in different regards, I think the solution to these areas is going to be American energy independence and making cheap energy and bankrupting these oil-dependent nations, including Russia and including Iran. And so I think that our actions here in the U.S. are going to be critical to stabilizing regions that have been unstable for the past 4 years. And this Ukrainian attack, basically sanctioned by the Biden administration, he's not in control, but why are we poking a bear so close to a drastic change in geopolitical alignment coming in January? And then with respect to Israel, I think the same thing. I'm concerned with the UN and potentially doing something in December with more sanctions to Israel just before, or a lack of a Security Council veto on legislation coming through the UN with respect to Israel is going to be concerning too. So I'm worried about some December surprises that won't be in Israel's favor or won't be stabilizing to the Ukraine-Russian conflict. So we have to be careful for the next few months and really hope that the world goes, whatever happens in the next few months, they can be unwound in January, and that the mandates on Netanyahu to do what he can to just end this by January are critical. So there's a lot to be cognizant of over the next couple of months.
I agree with you. And I hope in January, when we get a new administration, that the level of anti-Semitism in this country goes down. I hope we never see Gaza encampments on college campuses ever again. And I hope to God that a lot of these parents, either take their kids out of these liberal colleges that have these Gaza encampments, or don't even put your kids into these colleges, Jewish kids especially, and Christian kids. Because why give your money to an institution that hates you? Why give your money to an institution that allows this hatred on their college campus? It's wasting your money, basically. And, Jonathan, you know this, and Dr. Goldstein, you know this, you don't have to go to the most elite school to be the best doctor or the best lawyer out there, or even best business person out there. And it's a real shame. It's a real shame that it happened in this country, and God willing that the nightmare will end come January 20th, exactly 2 months from today. So am I going to see you guys at the inauguration?
I think I'll be there.
Good. I hope to see you there, Dr. Goldstein.
Okay, maybe you will.
That would be great. Please, guys, tell my audience some information, how they can follow you, how they can get in touch with you. Go ahead, Dr. Goldstein.
Sure. I mean, we still have a Substack. It's we still have the Goldstein for Congress website, which links to the Substack. We haven't taken that down, and so that's probably a good place to find us, because then the Substack we write articles on all different kind of subjects. Actually, going to be working on one about the election and the logic and why people voted the way they did. So we're we talk about all kinds of stuff. We talk about energy, the idea of massively producing energy in this country to drop the price worldwide, and also to transfer to get third world countries to burn diesel and natural gas rather than coal, which would massively reduce air pollution in this world. And so we have an out of the box ideas, and we're going to keep pushing them. And our goal is to we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, and we're going to be out there. We're going to get the message. We're going to continue to fight. Whatever happens, whether we run or we don't run, is an issue. It's possible that Jonathan might run instead of me. We have no idea what we're going to do.
That would be great. No, just kidding.
That would be great.
Actually, both of you guys could run together. You could run.
Well, we were actually thinking about that and running against each other in a primary and seeing. But anyway, who the heck knows? Whatever the future brings, it brings. And I think that we all need to stand up, and we need to continue to fight, because if we don't fight for this country, you see what happens. And thank God that the right president got elected and Trump got elected instead of Harris. And otherwise this country would be, I believe, finished. So, I mean, I think we have to be very grateful that happened and enough people woke up. We just need more to wake up in places like Connecticut. And my goal is to wake more people up in Connecticut, so that maybe they will come around and transform the state into a great state again.
I agree. Jonathan, final thoughts.
Sure. I just going back to the one thing about you're talking about education, higher education. I think it's really important we start moving back to trade schools, workforce training, manufacturing, the things that really put this country on the map. A liberal arts education doesn't really go very far when the power's out and you can't be resourceful. And your Tesla also doesn't work. I like Elon a lot, but it doesn't work in a national disaster emergency. So there are things that we need to be careful about. And so I think also from an education perspective, focusing on workforce instead of higher education, where the money will actually go to a valuable skill set, will make this country great. So as far as the Goldstein tag team here, you're going to see a lot more writing kind of co-authored by the two of us. And we're just going to keep, focusing on the issues, because we have a voice. We want to use it, and we want to help and make an impact. But to everyone who's an armchair Avenger, if you're in any of these groups of 7,000 people, 5,000 people, and you're in an echo chamber, you've got to get out of your echo chamber and recruit a new person and actually push the movement forward, because it doesn't help being in an echo chamber. And that was probably the biggest challenge to our campaign. And throughout this country were echo chambers of either MAGA or various health patriots that never got out of their circles to do anything. They just complained, and that was a concern across this country. So time to be uncomfortable, get out there, face the fear, and make an impact.
Get them off your tuchus. I'm going to use Yiddish here. Get them off your behind and do something.
Exactly.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, it's true.
Well, thank you guys so much for coming on. Of course, you guys are more than welcome to come on anytime you want. The door is always open. We love having you guys. Loved having Jonathan on today. Loved having you again, Dr. Michael Goldstein. Thank you guys so much, and we will be right back after the break.
Take care.
So much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As we age, we lose a bit of energy. Of course, that's not our fault. Our bodies change as we grow. Healing patches rejuvenate your cells and in the skin play a key role in the aging process. Research has found that as we age, the number and function of these cells decline, which can lead to a decrease in skin elasticity and the development of wrinkles. But what if there was a product that could restore that spunk for more than just our skin? There is, and it does. The product draws out other huge benefits such as more energy, better sleep, reduced stress, and pain management. If you would like more information, please go to miraclehealingtherapy.com. That's miraclehealingtherapy.com. Here's that website address once again, miraclehealingtherapy.com.
Hi guys, welcome back to the show. I'm Alexandra Levine with Alexandra 360. I just had two amazing guests. Again, a repeated guest, Dr. Michael Goldstein. He's a doctor in Connecticut. He ran for Congress against the incumbent Jim Hines, and his wonderful son, Jonathan Goldstein, who actually was his campaign manager and helped him through the process. And it's so nice to see families working together. Like I said, it reminds me of the Trump campaign, how all the families worked together. Don Jr. and Laura Trump and Eric Trump, they all worked together. Ivanka and Jared, of course, were in the White House administration in 2017. So it's so nice to see a father and son duo. And I hope they come back again. And I hope that Dr. Michael Goldstein runs again. And maybe his son will run for something this time. So please follow them at Dr. Michael Goldstein. He's on Twitter. He's on Facebook. If you have any questions about the medical field, any questions about anything, foreign policy, he's very good at, what the economy, whatever you need, his door is always open. And we really appreciate having both of those guests on today. So for the last 9 minutes, I just kind of want to, shift back into these appointments that President Trump is pushing through, or the wonderful people like Jonathan mentioned, Linda McMahon. She worked for Trump before. Now President Trump appointed her as Department of Education. As you know, her husband is Vince McMahon, the big WWE guy, billionaire. He's known President Trump for years. There was actually an episode where President Trump shaved his head. You can go back on YouTube and watch that. I mean, those guys go way back, just like President Trump goes way back with Hulk Hogan. And then, of course, he's bringing back Dan Scavino Jr. He's bringing back Stephen Miller. He's bringing back Taylor Burtok and a lot of the people that worked on his campaign in the Save America PAC. Now they're going to be working in the administration. And of course, he appointed one of my, or not mine, but a congressman in Florida, Michael Waltz, is his NSA director, but he just appointed my senator, Marco Rubio, as the Secretary of State. And now the question is, in Florida, who's going to replace Marco Rubio? Well, some of the rumors were speculating that my governor, Ron DeSantis, may appoint himself and become the next senator of Florida. My governor, he is going to be done with his term as governor in 2 years. He was reelected and his term will be done. And what's going to happen with Governor DeSantis? He did run for president. I will be honest, it did hurt his reputation. I would say the state of Florida was heavily divided by Governor DeSantis deciding to run for president. So I don't think he's going to be running for president anytime soon. I don't think 2028 is in the cards for him. I think he's going to kind of like rebuild his reputation in Florida, rebuild, the relationships again. But I will tell you, Governor DeSantis has been a great governor in Florida. He's done a great job. But a lot of people have said that running for president was not the smartest thing to do. So where is my governor going to go? Is he going to just, go back home to Dunedin? Is he going to stay in Tallahassee, or is he going to run for Senate? And then also, as you know, the Trump family, they literally changed their residence to Florida. Ivanka and Jared, they're residents of Florida. Don Jr. and Kimberly are residents of Florida. And Eric Trump and Laura Trump are residents of Florida. There's speculation that Laura Trump may be appointed for U.S. Senator. My other senator, Rick Scott, he wrote an article today that said that that Governor DeSantis is looking to appoint Laura Trump as the next U.S. senator. And of course, President Trump would love his daughter-in-law to be in that role. I think especially now with this American mandate, I think it is very wise to keep the Trump family involved in the political arena, whether it's in Congress, whether it's in the administration. Don Jr. himself has been a phenomenal fundraiser for his father. He has just fundraised and helped push a lot of these candidates forward that are America first, but also that have won seats, congressional seats and senatorial seats. Also, Don Jr. and even Eric Trump were very big influencers in deciding who President Trump's VP pick was going to be. JD Vance, they love JD Vance. And one of the reasons why President Trump picked JD Vance is because his sons heavily recommended him. And we saw that JD Vance did a great job with the debate against Governor Tim Walz, but he's also doing a great job now. And he is a baby senator, but myself watching him and others watching him in the Senate, he's one of the most America First policy senators. So it was a very smart pick for President Trump to pick JD Vance. So his children have a lot of influence into what goes on behind the scenes, but also they're his children. He trusts them first and foremost. They know what's in the best interest of this country. And who knows what's best for this country and knows President Trump's agenda. I mean, his children do. His children know the doctrine. His wife knows the doctrine. They're embedded in it. They're invested in our country. President Trump, he's a billionaire. He owns properties, golf courses. He loves to golf. He could go back to that life easily, but decided not to. He decided not to, and as a result, he's going to be the next president of the United States, January 20th. But again, we the people don't want to go back to the status quo. We don't want to go back to another politician as our president. And we definitely don't want to go back to Democrats. So who in your mind could push or implement President Trump's agenda forward? None other than his children. None other than his children. There's a lot of speculation that Don Jr. may run for president in 2028. Eric Trump may run in 2032. And then they say Barron Trump in 2044. I mean, that would be great. And if Laura Trump wants to be the next U.S. Senator of Florida, that keeps the Trump agenda alive. And Florida is a powerhouse. I'm a Florida resident. It is so beautiful to see congressmen and senators from the state of Florida in administrative roles. I mean, it's good to be a Floridian, to be honest with you. It's good to be an American, but it's really good to be a Floridian. Florida is taking over this country. And power to them. Florida is a 2-1 Republican state. I'm an elected official in Sarasota County, precinct 233. I love it. I love it. It's a very red state. I live in a very red county. And when President Trump moved down there, a lot of people moved down there too. A lot of people were already starting to move down there in 2016 and 2017 from New York, New Jersey, Maryland. So Florida is becoming this major powerhouse. But again, we the people, we mandated to Congress, we mandated to President Trump, we mandated to everyone that we want President Trump's agenda. We want the America First agenda. We do not want to be a socialist nation. Remember, President Trump said that we will never be a socialist nation. And he was right. Everything that President Trump has said is right. From 2015 on, even before that, even in the 1980s, he has been consistent on message from the beginning. So we need people in office that will be consistent on that messaging and never flounder. President Trump is not bond paid for, neither are his children. President Trump will never be bond paid for. President Trump won't even take the salary, the presidential salary. He will not take. His children will probably not take the presidential salary. Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump did not take salaries when they worked in the White House. I don't know if Laura Trump will take the senatorial salary if she becomes a senator, excuse me. I can't speak for her on that, but she may not. My point is that his kids are not bond paid for. His daughter-in-law is definitely not paid for. And we need to keep the Trump agenda alive. It's very important. We cannot go back. Not at all. We can't go back to the days of old. It is a new dawn. It is a new day. Just like the MD-GOP. The MD-GOP is having new elections for their officers, or re-elections, I should say, for their officers coming up this weekend, Friday and Saturday. I will be there. The chairwoman was running for re-election, Nicole Harris. She's Congressman Amy Harris's wife, against Dirk Hare. Dirk Hare was chairman for the MD-GOP for 6 years. He resigned, and now all of a sudden he wants to come back. Well, guess what? I guess he didn't have the votes, or something happened behind the scenes, or maybe Larry Hogan told him to get out. Who knows? But again, the people voted for Trump and the America First agenda, and Dirk Hare decided yesterday to withdraw from running for chair. So unless somebody gets nominated on the floor and causes a ruckus, which I hope that doesn't happen, Nicole Harris will be the chairwoman again. She will be automatically reelected if she's completely unopposed, which I think she will be. Because we, the people, want that agenda forward. Her husband is the chairman of the House Freedom Caucus. He didn't just get that honor out of nowhere. He got that honor because President Trump believes that he will push the agenda forward. And the House Freedom Caucus is so powerful. But also it's because of the common sense conservative values that Congressman Andy Harris has and shares. And he is a powerhouse in Maryland. He's still the congressman in Maryland there for a reason. The people there love him. He's done a great job for his district, and he's done a great job for the way the people, and he will continue. And his wife will continue to do a great job for the people of Maryland. But the people of Maryland spoken. They rejected Dirk Hare, who's a Hogan light. They rejected that agenda, and Dirk Hare withdrew from the race. Now, I'm not saying that Dirk Hare is just going to go away. He's not that type of person. He has aspirations for his wife to be governor of the state and to be Anne Arundel County executive, and he's probably going to work with Larry Hogan on something. So I wouldn't underestimate Mr. Dirk Hare. He's got his own intentions. But the fact that he will not ever touch the MD GOP for 2 years, and hopefully never again, shows that we, the people, won. And conservative voices now in this country, especially in liberal states, have to rise, and in liberal districts have to rise. Don't be afraid to speak up. Don't be afraid to speak out. Like Dr. Goldstein and his son said, you got to get up off your behind and do something. Don't just, biatch and complain. Crap or get off the pot. Do something. If you don't like the way the country is going, say something. If you want to make a difference, do something. Write a resolution. Get the right person in office. As you all know, I'm a political consultant. My job right now is to recruit proper candidates, and I'm heavily vetting them. I've had so many people, thank you to the people that have contacted me because they want to run. These are regular, everyday people, non-politicians. That's how it has to be from now on. We don't want the same politician after politician after politician in there. I don't consider President Trump a politician, neither does he. And if his children get in there, they will not consider themselves politicians either, because they are not bought and paid for. I will tell you, it is the lobbyists and special interests of this country that are controlling Washington. The majority of them are Democrats, and they're the ones that are trying to shake up Washington and make sure that that Trump's appointments don't go through. Because a lot of these special interests and lobbyists control the rhinos, never Trumpers, and snowflakers in Congress. They are all over Congress. They are part of the problem, and they need to be weeded out as well. We have proper people in there that care about this country, that don't put themselves first, that are not limelighters. Because we, the people, have had enough of that. We've had enough of people lying to us. We've had enough of people hurting us, and we have #had enough. And we're ready for a new direction, a better direction. If your Central Committee or your GOP isn't helping all candidates or helping America First candidates, then do something about it. Weed them out. Make over your party, take over your party, redo it, reshape it, remake it to what it should be, to what President Trump wants this country to be. Again, if you voted for President Trump, push his agenda forward. And if there's people in your party that are against President Trump, they hate President Trump, get them out. Because President Trump is the head of our party. He's the head of the Republican Party, whether you like it or not. So no more bashing him, no more criticizing him for his tweets or whatever. That's done. President Trump is trying to unify this party and unify this nation, and we all need to get behind him 100% and get behind his nominees. I want to thank everybody so much for joining me today for this hour on this special day. I want you to like and subscribe. Please like and subscribe us on Rumble at the Patriots Prayer Network. We're also on X at the Patriots Prayer. We're on YouTube at the Patriots Prayer. I'm also on YouTube at Levine Consulting. I'm on X at Alexandra LEVI20 on Facebook, Alexandra Levine. Patriots Prayer also is on Facebook at the Patriots Prayer. I'm also on Truth Social at ARLevine85. I'm also on Instagram at ARLevine85. Please like and subscribe if you're interested in sponsoring my show or the entire network. Please send me a message on my Facebook and Twitter, or my X, my Rumble. And we are just going to continue forward with the America First agenda. And the reason you listen and the reason you watch is you are no idiot.